Of Lawrence Common Council, the meeting is now called to order. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, and it's now 6:37 p.m. Can everyone please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and prayer? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, thank you for this opportunity to come tonight and to represent our constituents and do the work on behalf of the city. I pray, Lord, as we go about our business, that you will guide and protect. You will let us use a sound mind. And Lord, as we leave here tonight, Father, let us always remember that the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart always be acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we have a quorum. All counselors are present with the exception of Counselor Denny, who could not be here this evening. Next, we have comments of council members and special recognitions or resolutions.
Madam President, I have a recognition. I wanted to thank all the counselors here for pushing the Keystone Project in my district. I really appreciate your assistance and help. Thank you.
Welcome. Councilor Zamorov?
Yes, thank you. It has recently come to my attention that there may be a need for ADA compliance in our city parks, and I was wondering if I might request our Parks Department director to submit the number and type of ADA compliant facilities or abilities contained within our parks as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors?
Madam President.
Yes, Counselor Wells.
Thank you. I had a conversation with the building inspector and Mr. Hoffman this summer about dilapidated homes and some of the zoning issues. And I understand that we are working on trying to determine who is responsible, whether it is Indianapolis or it's us, or, but I understand there is some progress being made on that, I hope. And if sometime in the near future, if the administration could enlighten us as to some sort of a time frame, if they have one, on when we can start telling constituents when some of these issues and complaints, we might start getting some resolution on it. Thank you.
Issuing complaints regarding?
I'm sorry?
Issuing complaints regarding?
Dilapidated homes and people operating businesses in residential districts, just two of them that come to mind to me right now that we talked about earlier this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Seeing none, next on the agenda is signing of vouchers, approval of claims, and authorization of payment. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Motion, Counselor Giles.
Second.
Second, Counselor Freeman. Any discussion?
Madam President, did we ever get an answer from the voucher that we pulled a couple of weeks ago? I believe it was Counselor Wells. I believe it was, but somebody had object or had a question about something. Did we ever get clarification from the Controller's office?
And actually,
I didn't see anything.
I meant to add that in our open agenda items in our council's whole meeting. I believe, and Counselor Wells, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you did get the answers that you were looking for, even though you might have a little disagreement, but you did get the answers.
Okay.
And so I think we can go ahead and include that in the approval for tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Could I add to that just for a brief? Mm-hmm. Yes, I did get answers, and yes, they were definitely not ones that I particularly cared for. But if sometime in the future, between now and the next logger event, that would the administration please, we're asking, come to the council and explain this this business deal, because honestly, I'm not the sharpest tool when it comes to business, but this has to be, by appearance, the worst business deal I've ever seen. So I understand we've already done it, and, you know, I understand where we're at with it. I spoke with legal about it, and I'm not happy with it, but I would definitely like a lot better clarification on it and some understanding on why the city would have entered into such a poor business deal. Thank you.
So we have, you're welcome. We have a motion and a second. So all in favor by show of hands to approve the vouchers? 8 opposed?
Madam President, I'm going to have to abstain because I'm having problems with getting my emails from the controller, and I've been working with IT and Tyler with it, and I just got the vouchers this morning.
Okay.
I just haven't had a chance to look at them.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Wells. And 1 abstention. Next, we have unfinished business, proposal number 23, 2022.
Proposal number 23, 2022, introduced by Counselor Wells, a proposal for an ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the City of Lawrence, Indiana for the year 2023.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Counselor Wells.
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Rusamoroff. Any discussion? See none. All in favor by show of hands to approve proposal number 23, 2022. Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have proposal number 24, 2022.
Proposal number 24, 2022, introduced by Counselor Wells, a proposal for an ordinance establishing compensation for elected officials for the City of Lawrence, Indiana for the year 2023 and providing a time when the same shall take effect.
I don't think I looked at my text message, controller, so let me just go back on 23 real quick. We have just a couple clerical errors that we need to make sure that we bring to everyone's attention on the record.
So the first one, as we just discussed earlier, was the paramedic pay. So we did the additional, or we did an amendment earlier in the year, mid-year, I believe. So that minimum this year, or maximum, sorry, this year would be 26. It's still in there as 26, so it would need to be amended to the 2730. So that covers that one. Have you already talked about that? Did I miss that?
No.
From
No, thank you.
26 to
Yeah.
2730?
Yes.
And then I caught our math error, so we both did that HR benefits position wrong. There's a reason for it. Last year's ordinance had the range as $21.16 to $30.36. So what it should be at 5% is $31.88. And then your revised version, so my version had $33.51, yours had $32.93.
You were all right in that ballpark.
I figured out my rationale. We have moved someone that was originally in my office with the operations manager title. They're going to be doing this HR and benefits coordinator. But if you look at the operations manager pay, they actually make more than the new job they may be doing. And I don't think we've ever really adjusted that position, the HR and benefits coordinator position, to kind of a market rate. So I did adjust operations manager correctly up 5%, and I didn't make a note of it to make a comment that that's why I made the max for that other position, because they're taking on additional tasks, and we'd like to give them that new title.
So wait, so just to make sure I'm clear. So the operations manager is doing the HR benefits coordinator.
It's really, we want to move them to that position. So they've kind of taken on that role currently and have to
Okay.
use their old title, but it makes more sense for us to actually go about labeling them correctly, their primary role. And so
Which is HR benefits
coordinator.
Okay.
So that's 2116 to 3188?
That one is listed as 3293.
It should be 3188?
Should be 30. If you wanted to make it match the operation manager pay, it would be 3351.
Change that to 3351?
Well, we're discussing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's your call on that one. Their title can remain the same. They're still doing the management, but their primary role has been taking on a lot of our benefits coordination. So I think that title fits them a little bit better. And it makes sense internally for us, just from dealing with staff, that they use that title.
Deb, go ahead, please.
So do you get the numbers from a cost analysis?
I don't have it with me, but I just kind of went through Gateway to see what other HR departments were paying in other cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for clarity's sake and for the record, you're going to move the operations manager to the HR benefits position. You would like for the pay of the HR benefits coordinator to be, in line with the operations manager, so there's not a reduction in pay. Do you plan on hiring an operations manager?
There are other employees in the city with that title. So it's kind of I don't have off the top of my head who else is in that, but they're not being replaced. Like this specific person's not being replaced.
So, that's going to be an unfunded position.
Well, not necessarily, because again, their pay currently is, operations manager makes $31.91. If we're just changing their title, the pay is still.
But I'm funding two titles.
Yeah, so again, that HR benefits coordinator position's never been a filled and funded position.
So maybe I should cut that one and just let her do the job.
Madam Chair, this would be my suggestion for next year, because I think Lawrence does it a little bit differently than some of the other cities and towns I've seen. The other cities and towns' salary ordinances have every department and every position in that department listed, so you know exactly how many full-time positions you have. We just do it by title regardless of where the person worked. I would suggest you guys talk next year about being very specific in what you are funding, because I think I've gotten repeated questions and it leads to confusion about what positions are where.
Right, so that operations manager is just a blanket generic job that there might be somebody in every department that we have with that position or title.
Okay.
I wouldn't say,
Even
Yeah.
though you may not be.
You're just saying a couple. There could be one or two or whatever.
right? Like, I mean, you could,
You could combine those two roles though and pay that person significantly more money, right?
I wouldn't have it in the budget, but I mean, in theory, I wouldn't have it in the funding.
I would like to go with the recommendation of just making the HR benefits coordinator match to 3351. So it'd be 32, instead of 3293, it'd be 3351?
Yes,
So it's 60 cents or something like that?
right, yeah, it's not a big,
Okay.
in this person, in their current role, if they got the 5%, that's what they'd be getting if they kept the title. So it's like, it's in
Yeah.
the budget, we budgeted for that pay, yeah.
Okay.
Are you, any more discussion on that?
Are we voting on an amended version?
So the way I was going to address it, and I think I talked to council attorney about this, and as long as city attorney agrees as well, is we'll just adjust it as a clerical error and I'll sign it. If you guys, if that's,
Yep.
is everybody good with that?
You've already voted on it. so-
Yeah.
Complicated.
Okay. So for the record, we just want to note that it was changed. We've already voted on it, and I will just sign off on it as a clerical error. And then we'll make sure our paramedic position is appropriate as well, and I'll sign for that. So thank you. All right. Okay, we were on proposal number 24, 2022. And I believe you already read that by title.
Yes.
The recommendation, I'll give the update out of committee as a whole for that, was that unanimous vote to not approve pay increases for elected officials for the year 2023. So we will be voting on this, and if you are not in support of pay raises for elected official, you will be voting no. If you are in support, you will be voting yes, okay?
Don't we have to,
Can you repeat that again? Because that's not how,
Okay, so what is being recommended in proposal number 24, 2022 is a 5% pay increase for elected officials. When we talked about this in committee as a whole, we all did not recommend it the pay increase.
Oh.
Okay, for elected officials. That was a 9-0 vote, not in favor of pay increases for elected officials. That would include us, the mayor, Kathy, in that. So is everybody?
So then say your last statement again.
So if you are not in support of pay raises for elected officials,
It would be,
then you will be voting against this proposal.
But don't we just accept the
I
amended?
think it would be far clearer, Madam Chair, if you're okay with it, to have a motion on the amended version.
Yes.
That reverts it back to current. Otherwise, you have no elected official salary ordinance if you just
That's
vote it
correct.
down.
Okay, okay,
So have a vote on amending it to current 2022.
okay, I can do that.
Vote on the amended version.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the amended version of proposal number 24, 2022?
and the amended version would keep.
Would revert back to
back to
2021?
22, yes.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
You seconded it?
and Councilor Russo seconded. Now,
Maria did.
if procedurally, Counselor, that is not correct, I will stand corrected. So you're having a
I
fit
just-
over there.
No, I'm having a fit because we need to go back to 23. But did we amend 23?
No,
Then we need to go back to 23. Because we did, 23 was amended in committee of the whole.
no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
What's happening?
No, and
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
20,
okay.
so 23 was elected, so let me clarify this. Hold on a minute. Back up. Let me clarify this for the record. Proposal number 24, 2022, when it went before committee as a whole, we, 9 of us, 9-0, did not recommend it out of committee as a whole. Okay? So now before us is proposal number 24. We didn't amend that one or anything. That one just stood the way it was presented. So now we are at the point where we need to either vote in support or against proposal number 24, 2022, which is the elected official salary.
we've got to do an amendment, because if we don't, then there is no salary ordinance for any elected officials. So I think what Councilor Wheeler was.
So we already did I have a first and a second on the amended version.
Yeah.
Got it. Thought so.
Madam President, I feel like the controller's been trying to say something. I didn't know if it was okay.
You, I was a little confused. Okay, so we're currently voting on the amended 24, which is passed,
Not 20, amended proposal number 24? Yes.
which is the amended out of committee of the whole, 0% for
Yep.
or elected officials.
Yep,
0% increase.
0% increase.
Can we make a small comment on that?
Sure.
Briefly, sorry. So one thing, and I'll let Dave here speak in just a moment, but I did kind of had a couple conversations with a few people just about, and I know it's going to get confusing, but we kind of talked about the historical, going back and looking at in 19, when we first did a pretty dramatic raise, I think, probably on elected officials across the board, but I know we did it with the mayor. And we kind of dug ourselves in a hole where we were behind again, we kind of go back to the market rates and where we are. And it's not, I think, anyone's fault here because of just how the last few years have been pretty crazy. So when you look at, I think elected officials as a whole received a raise in 2020. In 21, we did the mid-year reversion, or not reversion, we did mid-year retro, 5% in 2021. That did not happen to elected.
Not for us, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly, for
Right.
non-elected officials. 22, we did the bonus. So again, I guess my point is we're starting to get in that habit again where we're going to start to get behind. And so my recommendation is we propose a balanced budget that had the 5%. And I do think that all elected officials should see that, nothing about individuals doing their jobs, but from the positions and what that means for keeping up with other communities. So I would kind of keep that in mind. And with that, I'll kind of give that to Dave. He can clean up what I'm saying a little bit more, but it's something to keep in mind at least.
Okay.
You're only saving, if it's trying to do cost savings, you're not saving, a significant amount of money. And I think in the long run, it
How
helps.
much are we
us.
saving?
For you all,
All elected officials?
I mean, it's going to be about $300 per person per year.
$30,000 a year?
roughly, maybe
To buy
25.
some playground equipment?
Now, yes,
My
and,
neighborhood.
well,
I'm willing to give up my $300 to help buy playground equipment in my community, and I don't think when I got elected that I wanted to make as much money as the guy in Fishers. So the parity thing to me is really, it upsets me as a servant. And anybody, I mean, it just upsets me, and I'm sorry, and I think it's appalling.
We're still in discussion. Go ahead, counselors.
No. If you don't mind me asking, what communities are we comparing to?
you can look at excluding, and I would say excluding Indianapolis because of the unique situation that Indianapolis is in. But if you look at, and again, I'm going to start from the top, and it's going to be a lot, but if you look at a Carmel, but you go all the way down to a Columbus, a Westfield, a Jeffersonville, Greenfield, and Greenwood, we are by far on the lower end. And so to me,
Is that what council pay, mayor pay, which elected officials?
this one is, that one analysis I had done was on the mayor pay.
Right, because the council pay, we're not that far off. 'Cause I've done the research too.
So,
You're not just, I mean,
right.
tell me if I'm wrong.
No, again, so I don't have that one in front of me, and I left some of it upstairs. But to that point, if we want to stay competitive,
We're not that far
if
off.
you don't want to from, counselor's perspective, that's okay too. But I do think that there's a point to be made where you kind of get what you're paying for. And we've seen that historically, which is why back in 19, we had to do such a big jump in 2020. And I'm kind of trying to avoid, I think, also from a fiscally management kind of perspective, it helps me when we're doing steady, consistent things rather than large jumps. And so if we find ourselves again at 2025 where we want to dig ourselves out of another hole and we have to do a 10 or 15% increase to readjust to the market, it makes financial planning a little more difficult. So I do have, that's my kind of perspective on that. I know there's other reasons as well, but.
Yeah, and you know what? I just, what is telling to me is that this council applies our, sort of conservative fiscal things across the board as it relates to our own situation as well as the city. So you're going to need to convince, because I think that I don't know, we're really sort of aligned with the fact that we don't feel that we should be giving ourselves pay raises in this kind of unpredictable financial climate. But go ahead, Mr. Hoffman. Go ahead, Mr. Hoffman. Yeah.
I just remember in 2020 when, and we'll talk about the mayor, he went 4 years without a pay increase, and President Chavis, you were presiding, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but your message to the fellow councilors, was that, modest, reasonable, every single year increases to match cost of living or other standards should be imposed for elected officials, yourselves included. And to not do that, you find yourselves in a position where 5 years down the road, then you're having to implement a bigger pay raise when it's kind of like you were catching up, in other words, for modest increases in pay. And it was your advice to the fellow councilors that we don't find ourselves in that situation.
Absolutely.
And then in as the controller just mentioned, for the next 2 years, and now into our third, the mayor has not received a raise once again. So that's.
Yeah. So just to be clear, the elected official salary ordinance is not about the mayor's pay.
I just use that as an example.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that is sort of.
Another example.
Yes, but that's where we're sort of focused. So I just want to make sure, it is about everyone, right? That's elected. And I did make those statements because we had honestly been, I can't remember, it was like
15 years or something.
it was like some ungodly amount of time.
more than 2.
I don't count 2021 because of the pandemic. I mean, hopefully no elected officials were taking raises during a pandemic. That would just not be the right thing to do. So I think that we have stayed on track outside of the pandemic. This year is only really the year post our last raise that is even a viable year for us to even be considering it, in my opinion. So let's just continue to discuss. I mean, you bring valid points. We did have to do a huge adjustment when we did it last time, specifically with the mayor pay, and we even did a significant one for us, you know, to right-size it. So let's just see what else other counselors have to say.
Madam President, I sponsored this, and I sponsored it by talking to the controller, Tyler, and it made sense what he was telling me. I mean, I feel, as you do, I'm not in this for the money. If I was, I would be kind of dumb. But but regardless, there is a lot of work, well, you all know, there's a lot of unseen work here. And I just don't want to end up in a situation, and this is why I sponsored it, is exactly like what Mr. Hoffman said and Tyler had said. I don't want to end up in a situation like we did in 2020, where we take a huge raise to try to get us back into the normal. And because I definitely have some calls on that. Oh, you guys voting yourself all this big pay raise. Well, you don't know the whole story of it, that, you know, we're trying to keep up with, you know, just with the rest of the surrounding communities. And the other part of this is too, is here again, the money is not, this isn't, you know, the reason to be doing it, but maybe in the future, maybe somebody would be looking at the money, and maybe it would have an effect on someone of quality to run for these council seats and or the mayor. And so, you know, I just think it's something that it makes sense, and that's why I sponsored it. I mean, when we had the committee of the whole, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, you're trying to get rich on the council. Well, I don't see that ever happening, but
So let me throw this out there, okay? Just since we're in discussion. So we can't raise it, but we can lower it.
No.
So, yeah, so we can lower it to, we can
Which one?
recommend an amended version of the elected official salary if people were more comfortable. I'm just throwing a suggestion out there with like 3% instead of 5%. I'm just trying to get a meeting of the minds, trying to throw something out there that will move us forward, but also give us some space for our concerns, right? So I'm just throwing something out there. It may not stick, but I'm going to throw it out there.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about lowering the existing pay right now. Which
No. The
talking
increase.
about the amendment with a 5%, you're saying
We could do 3%.
we could do 1, we could do 0, we could do anything
exactly.
other than above 5. That's true. Okay.
Yes. So I'm just throwing it out there. If I do, and I did say exactly the words, so you went back and looked at the meeting. I did say those exact words because we don't want to have to be in the situation where we're taking 10 and 12% pay increases because we didn't do a raise for 8 years. Like, we do need to stay within parity of what other folks are doing, much like we're doing for every other competitive position in the city. So, you know, we always put ourselves last, and we're not in this for money, but I'm just asking everybody to look at it from that lens because that is a valid point.
So I have a couple questions. I'm sorry. All right. So since we're going to this parity issue, how much does the Greenwood Council make?
I don't have the council numbers.
Well, see, that upsets me, Tyler, because how can you get us to think that this ain't about just the mayor if you can't even give me a comparison to what the other city is? I mean, I get up here and I don't want to have these
I understand.
attitudes, but Jesus.
To be fair, as I kind of mentioned with some conversations with people today, I wasn't even sure that we'd have a chance to speak today. So I really wasn't sure.
Y'all always get to speak. You're on the agenda.
Kind of.
Not in the mid-month.
not for comments of the administration. So I wasn't sure, I do apologize for that, but I wasn't really.
When you
sure I was
made
gonna
this
get that.
evaluation, it doesn't make you think you were thinking about me.
No, I apologize that you.
No, or any of us, not just me personally, I'm saying like any of us, because there's nine of, okay, how many elected officials is it? 9 of us,
Kathy and the mayor.
Kathy and the mayor,
so you
11.
only worried about one. Can you tell me about her job?
I can actually, and that's one of the points I would like to make is that I know we talked about, it may not be the best time for elected officials to take a pay raise through pandemics and all that, but when you look at the clerk and you look at the mayor who are full-time and came in during all of this, they didn't get a break.
So what
They
did
were
the,
still like the rest of full-time
so
employees.
what does the Indy clerk make?
Yeah, I don't.
What's the Greenwood clerk make?
So I think the point we're trying to make here, and this applies to you specifically as well, is that 0 doesn't seem fair. With the cost of living skyrocketing and inflation and all that stuff, you all, counselors, all elected officials, yes, we focused on the mayor, of course, because we had those numbers from, neighboring communities. But it's not the exact number of your salary, it's just the percentage.
Well, the last
So-
time we got a raise, Fenwick knew it was about us. I remember knowing, because I could tell you the people in East Chicago up in Lake, they make more money than any of us. Right?
So I would just suggest that, I think the president's suggestion that maybe something, you give city employees 5% across the board, give yourselves half that. That speaks volumes.
Some data to compare it to. I'm trying.
Okay.
Well, an AIM does a salary survey every single year. The data is out there. My recommendation, counselor, is that you look at it, because for 6 years, I've heard everybody claiming what everybody else makes. I've never seen data to back it up.
I saw data from Fenwick did bring, when we made the last change, I was the finance chair. I can honestly say Fenwick brought us,
It was on the.
I brought it. I did the
display.
research. He asked me, but I went and I pulled every municipality of comparable size, and I handed this out to everybody. It was on Excel, Richmond, Greenwood, Fishers. All of us at that point looked at this and said, we are way behind. So I thought we did the right thing to at least calibrate to make up, and so we went from 74,000, which is what the mayor's office was making, to 97, 98?
Something like that.
So a
We've done a
30%.
few increases since.
So I had that data in 19. I didn't realize, I would have been happy because it's like Christina said, you could pull this in AIM, which is what I did. And then I contacted all the clerks in all these cities and made sure that the data that I was looking at AIM was exactly what each of the council members and those mayors and clerks were making. So I would have been happy to do it. It's not that difficult, but anyway, I'll be quiet on this, but I have a perspective. But I'll let my vote speak for that.
You want to do it? You want to pull it? No. Do you want to go pull the data? Can take a brief recess.
22.
Okay. Counselors, what? Counselor Wells made his position be known. Counselor Rusamorov?
I'm good. Were you looking for something from me?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
like, I mean, are you against any raise or want to see the
I'm-
data, or irregardless of the data, you don't support it? I just want to sort of get everybody.
I'm in favor of the amended proposal as it stands.
Okay,
Hold on a minute, hold on.
My vote is a no for the raise.
okay.
I'm sorry.
My vote is the no for the raise, but are we doing it, us as the elected officials, and not including the mayor and the clerk?
They're included. Everybody who's elected is included. So if we don't get one, they don't get one.
No.
Nobody gets one. It's either all or none. And I was just polling to see interest so that before I have you run off and waste your time, there's no point in me doing that.
I would say it's probably worth pulling the data. Just to have it.
Lauren, will you
Now I'm,
let me-
Madam President?
pull the data?
Well, here's where I'm conflicted. We heard a budget presentation, we heard from an outside Baker Tilly that clearly painted a more bleak picture than what I believe we're in. But nevertheless, we were presented a budget that showed things were tight. And as an elected official, personally, at least I think I know most of you well enough that we did not come into this to make 15 grand a year. And I don't know that any elected official should go into an elected official role because of the income. I do believe they need to get paid, and they need to get paid fairly, and they need to get paid adequate to the job. But in the environment that we just heard at a budget presentation and then in what Baker Tilly presented, it just doesn't square with me that maybe we could wait a year and this has been talked about. We talked about, let's see what next year looks like, which I'm okay with being that patient, but we're talking about raising pays of elected officials, which is never popular, but I think we did the right thing in 2019 because it was so far down.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Councilor Wells, that you want to attract good people, but the reality is good people should want to do this job regardless of the money. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely.
And so I'm kind of divulging my position here, which is what you've asked, but
Yep.
I think after everything we heard about the budget and everything's tight and all these other things, this is not a place that we should be increasing our budget at this point. Next year, I'd be happy to do this analysis, look at everything, see what the assessments looks like, see what the revenue looks like. But
Can I say something? When we did the pay raise, I'm not sure if I was the only counselor, but I voted against it. And I voted against it because, and this may not be a popular thing for me to say, but two big reasons I voted against it was I thought it was an exorbitant amount of money. Here again, because we're not in this for the money, but to do it all at once for as much as we did. And then the other problem I had was the fact that it was, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but we did this like the meeting after the election. And that really didn't sit well with me at all. And because it should have been done during the budget. So, I mean, if we're going to do a pay raise for ourselves, if you want to wait till next year, fine, but let's do it during the budget process so the citizens can see what we have done.
That's fair.
Because I thought if we did it now and had 5%, then the citizens are going to see what we have done. If they have a problem with it, then they can take it out on us at the polls. But
Yeah, but just for a point of clarification, we can only, that was not done after the election. It has to be done as part of the budget process. So it would have never been done outside of it because it can't be legally. So I know it was close.
I beg to differ with
but-
you. It was done right after the election.
Well, the election might have been November 2nd and the meeting might have been November 5th. But the people that were elected weren't the ones that were sitting up here voting unless you were an incumbent.
Right.
But it has to be done legally as part of the budget process. So I just want to clarify that. It wasn't done after. It can only be done one time during the year, and that is during the budget process.
Correct. Okay, so I would like to make a point, and I think Councilor Shevell made a really good point about the budget being tight. A couple points on that is that, one, you should never hear that you really don't, you want to be cautious with your finances, and so you shouldn't, especially with the municipality, and you should never really think you've got to, a lot of money. And so you're always going to be tight because you're always going to propose a balanced budget. But one of the notes I want to make is that originally when we were doing our analysis and really prepared the budget, I believe the net revenue in the general fund was going to be about $5,000 in the current projection. So that with our current proposed 2023 budget, not only is it balanced, it has a net revenue of $18,000. So it is tight, but even that net right now is enough to cover the majority of these raises, but they're already included in the balanced budget anyways. So the tightness is a really good argument, and I don't disagree, but it's covered in the balanced budget, and there's some room. And so I know it's never going to be, oh, okay, you've got 5% raises in here, and there's so much room that you're netting $500,000. I mean, that's a perfect world we don't live in. But still seeing almost a $20,000 net positive with this level of raises is a good sign. I do think we need to be cautious moving forward, but the comment about being tight, I mean, we're always going to be tight. Now, the number 2 point I kind of want to make on that was that this is more, from my perspective, is that we hosted quite a bit of budget workshops to have this specific conversation kind of ironed out before we got to this point, and I had not heard any concerns until the last council meeting. And so we do have some very clear concerns about this, and I would have liked to address those appropriately. So kind of my point on that is the reason we host those workshops is to iron this type of stuff out well in advance. But right now you have before you a balanced budget. And so I really have to recommend you vote on the proposal because of that.
That's fair. That's a fair statement.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's a valid point. I was at the primary couple, and I didn't bring it up, guilty as charged, because it's such an insignificant piece when you're talking about $25 million. I focused on public safety, which is 75% of our budget, so I missed that. Fair enough. And it's an interesting point that the budget that's before us is balanced with this 5%. I don't know that it really changes my belief about the role of a public safety in the, so fair enough.
Councilor Russell?
My only thing that I have to say is I think you make a valid point with this is a balanced budget. You guys have done a great job. I was at as many meetings as I could, and I didn't think to raise questions on this. My only thing that I personally have to question is I don't want to compare to Fishers and Carmel, because I know for a fact when we talk to public safety, when they say, hey, we need a raise because, Fishers and Carmel's make this, well, we're not Fishers and Carmel. That's how I feel here. I do not want to take anything if we can't give to them, because we're not Fishers and Carmel. Because it's the same thing. We're the city of Lawrence. We're our own entity. So I'm kind of torn right here. So that's where I'm at right now.
Lisa, what's on the table right now?
5% raise?
Yeah, proposal for elected, I'm
Accept the
going
amended
to,
version.
I am going to, I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess really quick.
Thank you. That's good, because I got some questions.
I can't.
It's now called back to order. Thank you for your patience.
Madam President, on Proposal 24, I'd like to withdraw my motion at this time.
Okay. Thank you. And it's, Councilor Zamorov was the second.
I will also withdraw my second.
All right. We will table proposal number 24. We need to circle back really quick to proposal number 23, 2022. I need a motion to accept the amended version.
I'll make that motion.
So it's not just clerical error, if we're going to call it an amended version.
So Councilor Chevalier, motion.
I'll second the amended version of proposal number 23.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by show of hands. Motion carries unanimous. Now we have I need a motion to accept proposal number 23,
What?
Amended.
amended version number
I'll make a
23.
motion.
Motion, Counselor Russell.
Second it.
Second, Counselor Wells. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have proposal number 25, 2022.
Proposal number 25, 2022, introduced by Counselor Wells, a proposal for an ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the Police Department and the Fire Department for the year 2023.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Counselor Russell.
Second.
Second, Counselor Freeman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next on the agenda, we have proposal number 6, 2022.
Proposal number 26, 2022, introduced by Counselor Freeman, a proposal for an ordinance for appropriations and tax rates for the 2023 budget year.
Is there a motion?
I make the motion.
Motion, Counselor Freeman.
I'll second.
Second, Counselor Rusamorov. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have proposal number 27, 2022.
Proposal number 27, 2022, introduced by Counselor Russell Moroff, a proposal for an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, amending the Lawrence Municipal Code to establish an all-way stop intersection at Glass Chimney Lane and High Timber Lane.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion, Counselor Rusamorov.
Second.
Second, Counselor Freeman. Any discussion?
Does that have to be recommend? It was recommended out of code today. Do we need?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for those of you who weren't at code, it was recommended. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have proposal number 28, 2022, that remains in committee as a whole. Proposal number 9, 2022.
Proposal number 29, 2022, introduced by Counselor Freeman, a proposal for an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, amending Title III, Article 2, Chapter 4 of the Lawrence Municipal Code related to vehicle stopping, standing, and parking within 2,000 feet of a school.
Counselor Freeman, that was recommended out of code as well.
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, so proposal number 29, 2022, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion?
I'll second.
Motion, Counselor Freeman, second, Counselor Rusamorov. Any discussion?
Madam President, is this in regards to the Fall Creek Valley? Okay. And you said you guys recommended it out of code. And can you explain to me what this is entailing then? Just no parking on the side streets in the neighborhood?
There was no parking, no standing. It actually copies the Carmel ordinance.
Got it.
So no standing, no
stopping,
parking.
No standing, no parking within 2,000 feet of a school.
Okay. My question, just because knowing with the Fall Creek Valley, with that neighborhood, just a question. Do we know how that's going to back up the main roads?
It's supposed to help the main road.
No, because this is talking about in Watson Farms, is that correct? Am I wrong? So, because there's people that park in there and their kids walk to, so my question is, if they can't go in there, which is fine, I get it, because we heard the constituents' concerns, have we thought about how that's going to back up the main roads to even getting in, because now they can't go in, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's 15 to 20 cars that sort of consistently, isn't that what I recall?
It was more. Because they're coming.
coming and going.
But what you're saying is they just got to go through the process like every other drop-off car rider.
Yes, but have you, the reason why I'm saying that is, I'm just being
Yeah.
devil's advocate here. I know parents that pick up there, and knowing that intersection and knowing the people that work the driving, it does back up.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, that's not going, just as that, was that considered, but that's not gonna make more traffic on the main roads, is that?
Yeah, I don't think it was considered because that's really the school district's issue to solve, I think, is the reason why we didn't consider it. But I think that, at least from the conversations that I recall having with Counselor Freeman and the constituents that were here, it's more of a safety issue for the kids that actually walk to school from that neighborhood, because now there's cars that are driving in and out on one street, making it unsafe for kids to actually walk to and from school. Sort of like the same issue with the sidewalk little piece that we put for St. Simon.
Understandable. The reason why I ask is just where I'm concerned with the street traffic is just, in my district is Amy Beverland. Yep. And that traffic is a nightmare. It don't matter if we have a light or nothing, it's a nightmare. And so that's just my only concern, is because nobody ever wants to go down that road because it's a hot mess. I just wanted to make sure that when we talk about it, I get it, if it's gonna be the safety of the kids, totally understandable. I just know that from experience, that's a nightmare in our district. I just wanna make sure that that was considered or at least talked about when talking about it.
I believe this is for all the schools.
Yes, I'm just saying, I know personally from Fall Creek, that road, I'm speaking, because I went there, so I got this. I can't think of the name of the exact road, but when you're driving from Watson Farms.
Twickenham.
No, not Twickenham. It's the main road on the back.
59, 63rd Street.
Yes, thank you. That 63rd Street, yes. That back road, it would back up with traffic, just because it's just a long line of traffic waiting for pickup, because it's a long line.
2 schools there.
Yeah, so I'm just making sure, when we've had this discussion in code, I wasn't a part of code, I just want to make sure that that was at least considered, like, we're not backing up traffic, right? That's all I'm asking.
Well, I don't think that that was a consideration, because I think that the idea is that, you know, folks shouldn't be doing that. And now we have like an ordinance that basically makes it illegal. And I think it was reviewed by the Lawrence Police Department and actually recommended by them as well. And then my understanding is that the school district was notified of the issue as well and asked to sort of step in and offer a solution. I think is as we continue to grow as a city, the school district is going to have to come up with a solution, because the solution can't be that cars just, you know, circle through neighborhoods to pick up their kids. But I do think, and you have a valid point, and I think as the district grows, as the city grows, they're going to have to come up with some solutions for more than just Fall Creek, but for Amy Beverland and many of the other schools that are in the district. So valid point, for sure. It is a challenge. In Amy Beverland, I live in District 6. It is a huge challenge. So thank you for bringing that out. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next is resolution number 14, 2022.
Resolution number 14, 2022, introduced by Councilor Freeman. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana, authorizing stormwater improvement plan, grant application submission, and local match commitment to the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs and addressing related matters.
I would like to make this motion, please, for approval.
It's in finance.
I don't think it's.
Oh, we talked about it. I mean, I'm so excited about they found an Okra grant instead of a bond for this that I'm just so
Yeah,
excited.
it's in finance, and you guys haven't met yet, but
Oh,
He's on it.
He's on it.
I heard about that Okra
get
grant.
ready. So that is in finance.
Yeah, it's
New business.
go get.
So new business, there is none.
I'm so pissed.
We're adjourned.